Hi Hannah, welcome to my vlog.
Action. Action. Go! Go! Dang, I did it too. I can't.
Red!
In October of 2017, I began pre-production on my first film. It was my first time doing anything of that scale. I was inexperienced and pressed for time, but I was eager to learn and excited to finally try filmmaking. I set out to write, direct, shoot, and edit a whole short film, and I learned an incredible amount along the way. After writing my script and establishing what characters I wanted to be in the short, I needed to get people to play them. That was going to be an issue because I wanted you, the viewer, to think of the people on screen as characters and not the actors who played them. If I got students from my school, I knew that you would automatically associate them with the people you know when I wanted them to be the person I had written. So I asked my cousin Zoe Giuliano to come out and help me with the video. She was very enthusiastic and we had a really great time hanging out in between scenes, and I'm very glad she could help me on my short. Pretty much from the beginning of the screenwriting process, I knew I wanted to film most of it on location outdoors. I thought that if I wasn't in a studio or in a building or in a school, it would look less student-y. I was wrong. It didn't work at all. Filming on location is so much harder than I was expecting, like so much harder. We filmed in fall because obviously the movie's called Autumn and I wanted the bright colors for when I did the transition at the end. So of course I thought, oh, beautiful, like warm days, it'll be perfect weather. It was always overcast, always, and the clouds were always moving past the sun, and so we'd have to wait like 20 minutes for the clouds to roll in front of the sun and then film as much as we could, only to wait for the sun to go away again when it came back out. And it was tough and it was long and a lot of sitting around, and I felt like I was getting nothing done. Pretty much all of the ambient noise you hear in the background is fake. Most of it was unusable. I got like a few, one or two times that there was stuff I could use, but I had to remake most of it. Cars were always honking. The wind was always blowing. There was drones sometimes. I had that issue. I had the humming of drones in the background. Just people talking. It was anything that could make excess noise made excess noise while we were filming. It wasn't. In post-production, that was a nightmare. It was extremely fortuitous to have Zoe come out and work on the shoot because no one had met her before, and so she could play the perfect anonymous main character and a girl that everyone could relate to. However, I didn't have any other people to star in my film because I didn't have any other connections outside of the town I live in. So I enlisted one of my friends, Alice Hathaway, to play Girl 2, the girl who gets introduced at the end of the short and changes the way Girl 1 sees the world. Later on, I realized I needed to have more establishing shots of the girl feeling lonely and depressed and sad, so I wanted to include a few shots of her watching a group of friends having fun and hanging out and being sad that she doesn't have that. So I had to get more people to star in my shoot, which was getting increasingly more difficult because it was hard to get 2 people, let alone 3 like I wanted. So I enlisted the help of 3 of my friends, Savannah DeVos, Jackie Celestino, and Katie Wilkins, to play one couple and their friend going out on the date together. It was a Saturday morning and I asked them to come out with me a couple towns over while it was downpouring and film a scene in t-shirts. It was January and they were very cold and I felt very bad because we were in full coats and long sleeves and warmth and scarves and umbrellas, and I had to force my friends to pretend as though it was autumn and in fall. So I offered the payment of ice cream and luckily they took it because I could not have done it without them. And it was pretty good ice cream too. Alice not only played a role on screen, she was also really influential behind the scenes as well. In pre-production, she helped me flesh out the characters and figure out what I wanted to do with the plot, and helped me write a story without having dialogue, and brainstorming images and storyboards with me. I was scribbling things down on my script and on my shot list and on my storyboards. She was holding the camera, she was coming up with ideas with me. She was once or twice she was the camera operator, which was very fun. And she was also a very, very diligent umbrella holder for when we were filming in the rain, and she was protecting the camera and me and her from rain, which was very nice of her. She was very, very diligent and had to work long hours, and I could not have done it without her. There were a few shots that I tried very hard to incorporate into the film. For example, the scene in the kitchen, I was determined to make one long steady shot. Most of the shots I had planned for Autumn were steady cam shots that weren't really that steady. I wanted a perfectly still, long acting shot to convey the loneliness of the house the girl was in on her birthday. Filming this scene was a lot harder than I thought it would be because I had no room to put the camera. It was balanced on my counter, but you kept seeing it in the screen. I couldn't see the screen as the camera was rolling because my kitchen cabinet was in the way. Also, it was a particularly difficult task for Zoe to act for more than 25 seconds. Most of the shots used in Autumn are maybe 10 seconds long, and I had to ask her to do many different movements in one scene. It's one of my favorite scenes, but we had to reshoot it many times. Also, it's not as noticeable as I was hoping it would be, but the opening shot and the final shot bookend the film. The first shot of Autumn is a fade from black into a pan up over leaves to the main character. The last shot is a pan down from the main character over leaves to a fade to black. Those were the exact same leaves, toted around to each location every day. The only difference was that the first scene was desaturated and the last was in full color. It's subtle, but I love the parallel. Another scene that gave me a lot of problems was filming in the woods. Everything about that was difficult. We originally wanted to film on a nearby dock overlooking the lake, but there were people there. So we trekked off the path and filmed 100 feet down the road. Also, when following an actor walking through the woods, there's going to be 2 sets of footsteps when there only should be 1. It was a nightmare to edit in post-production. I was all excited because there's the most beautiful sunset I had ever seen over the edge of the trees, and it was right there in the shot, and perfect, and could not have worked better. Only for me to have to desaturate the film in post-production. It was a very sad moment to take away all the colors. I'm very fortunate to have such talented friends because I didn't want to deal with getting royalties for music, and I really knew nothing of that part of the industry, and I kept putting it off to the end of the film, like, oh, I'll worry about the music later. But then when it came time in January when I had to finish this project, I had to get music. I couldn't have a non-musical film because it didn't have any dialogue. So it had sound effects, and that was about it, and that was pretty boring to watch. So luckily, Alice also was the composer of the film Autumn. She took a shorter piece that she had written before and elongated it and added parts in the middle and changed it to fit the emotions, and we had to record it not only once but twice because I lost the footage of the first time we recorded the music. So the second time ended up being better anyway, so it worked pretty well. But Alice was a trooper, and she did pretty much every part of production. Making Autumn was one of the hardest but most rewarding endeavors I have ever attempted. I planned it out as much as I could, but when actually doing it, there were many challenges which could not have been planned for. I had to come up with solutions for them on the spot. I learned by doing, and I'm very much looking forward to the next one. Oh, it's hard directing.